Now, I don't know about the rest of you, but since Yom Kippur was just a week ago, I'm a little sermoned out. So if you want a sermon, tough. Tonight, I'm going to share a story with you. It's called The Magic Gourd, A Story for Sukkot by Deborah Gordon. It begins, as many stories do, once, long ago, there was a couple who were truly in love. They decided to be married in the autumn under the canopy of the sukkah in the presence of their friends and relatives. When the time came, they invited the ushpizin, the ancestors, and said their vows with the full moon peeking through the schach that lined the sukkah roof. After the ceremony, the guests came forth to offer gifts and blessings to this couple. Suddenly, a stranger stepped forward. It's always a stranger. He had a long, full beard, a lined face, and rumpled clothes. Everyone was puzzled. He must be from another town, they murmured to each other, probably traveling through. The man spoke to the bride and groom. Because your love is so true, I have a special gift for you. He held out a smooth, round gourd that gleamed in the soft light. This gourd is magic, he said. It contains a wish, but only one wish. So you must use it very wisely and carefully. Do not waste it. The guests stared at the strange man as he continued. This wish must be made in the autumn when the moon is full. Come into the sukkah and speak it to the ancestors. Then together agree on your wish before you make it. The strange man handed them the gourd, and before they could thank him, he was gone. They hung the gourd in the center of the sukkah where the moonlight gave it a special glow. Now it so happened that a greedy man among the guests overheard the story about the magic gourd. That night, that very night, he snuck into the sukkah in the wee hours of the morning, and he stole the gourd and replaced it with another that looked identical, but it was as empty of wishes as the air. On the way home in his wagon, he was so excited thinking about how the gourd would make him rich that he forgot to look where he was going. He drove his wagon off the road into a mud hole where its wheels became hopelessly stuck. The more he tried to get out, the deeper he sank. Finally, in desperation, he yelled, "I wish I was out of this mess!" And poof! Instantly, he was on dry land, and the single wish was wasted and gone forever. Meanwhile, the young couple started their life together. When the winter rains came, they brought the gourd into their home to keep it protected throughout the year. In the autumn, they hung it in the center of their sukkah, thinking, of course, that it still contained a wish. Everything went well for them for a few years, but after a while, their business began to fail, and they had trouble making ends meet. That year, on the first day of Sukkot, the wife turned to her husband and said, "I think it is time to use the wish. If we could only get on our feet financially, I think everything will fall into place." Her husband agreed. That night, they went into the sukkah, sat for a while in the stillness. Then they welcomed in their ancestors, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They invited the spirits of their grandparents and all those who came before them. When they felt their presence, they spoke to the ancestors silently. When it was time to make their wish, they placed their hands upon the gourd. And then the husband spoke. "You know, I've been thinking, maybe if we concentrate on our work and we work together a little harder, we can make a go of it without wasting this wish. We might really need it later." His wife nodded. So that night they ate dinner in the sukkah under the stars with their ushpizin without using their wish. From that moment on, they concentrated on working together and working harder until eventually their business began to improve. After enough time, they were earning plenty of money to get by. A few years passed, and one day the husband said to his wife, "There's only one thing missing from our life." And she knew just what he meant: a baby. So again, they centered the sukkah on the full autumn moon and sat in silence. They invited all the ancestors and waited until the sukkah filled with the holiness of those who came before them. When they put their hands on the gourd ready to make the wish, the wife spoke. You know, I think we should be patient. Perhaps if we pray for a child, we may be blessed with one, or perhaps not. But we really should save this wish for another time. And the husband agreed. And they waited patiently, and eventually, thankfully, unlike some, they were blessed with a baby. And a few years later, another baby arrived, and then another. And the children grew up, and the man and the woman grew experienced. One day, the wife turned to her husband and said, I think it's time to use our wish. He nodded, for he knew the only thing she would wish for, to be young again and to live forever, and to see their children and grandchildren grow and prosper. So they went into the sukkah where the gourd hung in the glow of the moon. They invited the ancestors and sat quietly with them in the soft light. When they put their hands on the gourd, they looked into each other's eyes, and they both shook their heads and said, Not yet. For in the moonlight they realized that their love would live forever, just like the spirits of their ancestors. Who knows? Maybe someday we'll really need that wish. They eventually went back into the house and grew older. Eventually the husband passed away, and his wife soon followed after. The children kept the gourd and then passed it on to their children, who passed it on to their children through the generations. And with it they passed on the custom of Ushpizin, and passed on the idea that hope is not something that we wish for, but rather something that we work for. For a sukkah is in some ways a parody of a home. It is not truly secure from the weather or from the ills of the world. Instead, it is a space where we can truly live and experience the challenges, fragilities, and joys of life. So as we leishev b'sukkah, as we dwell in the sukkah, may we find more ways to embrace those who fill our lives with love and those who share our journeys with us. And we invite others to join us as well. And in this way, we can truly celebrate a Sukkat Shalom, a shelter of peace, and hope for this day, and hope for all days. Chag Sameach, Shabbat Shalom.